I collected water from a well over 300 years old and put it into a glass jar to find out what life had been living in that darkness this entire time. What I found in there surpassed everything I'd ever seen before. A full aquatic ecosystem with creatures I didn't even know could exist. It all started on the first day, after a long walk, when I came across a very old well, from a time when agriculture was booming in this area, and that now, centuries later, had been completely abandoned for a long time. I collected some water very carefully, making sure not to fall in, since this well is 50 feet deep and is connected to a livestock watering trough. Right there, in that stagnant water, I found a wasp drowning, and without thinking too much, I decided to take the risk of saving it with my own hands. Luckily for me, even though it was visibly stressed, it never once ended up stinging me. But the most incredible part of all is that this trough was completely full of life. Dozens of tiny fish lived inside it, and although they looked pretty and harmless, they were actually fully alert, waiting for some insect to make the fatal mistake of falling into that water so they could devour it without hesitating for even a second. Any movement on the surface immediately woke up their instinct. So once again, curiosity got the better of me, pushing me to take the next step, and I decided to submerge my hand in the water, just to see how they would react to me. The water was extremely warm, somewhere around 86 degrees Fahrenheit, and although the fish attacked me, it all translated into nothing more than tiny tickles on my skin. I decided to leave them alone and filled my jar all the way up with that well water, being very careful not to spill a single drop. After that, I set off on a long journey of several miles, crossing completely different terrain in search of a river where I could continue this adventure. The place was completely full of life everywhere I looked, and I couldn't stop wondering what would happen if I added just a little of this water to my glass jar, which already held the stagnant water from the well. So I waded in slowly, carefully searching for the exact spot where the water was clearest, with the intention of collecting some substrate along with a few rocks, something that would also serve as the perfect hiding spot for the creatures I'd already captured from the well. And then I headed home, eager to discover what was inside that jar. Even at first glance, there already seemed to be movement inside, but the best part came when I activated the super zoom on my camera and got to see the very first creatures up close. I found the remains of wasps that had already served as food for other creatures. But the truly incredible part came when I observed this snail up close, showing a completely hostile attitude toward the wasp's body. It kept returning to it again and again, as if its very presence deeply bothered the snail, and I couldn't quite tell whether it was actually trying to eat it or simply couldn't stand having it nearby. This snail is a Physa acuta, and it hides something incredible. It's a hermaphrodite, possessing both male and female reproductive organs at once, and if it can't find a partner, it's capable of fertilizing itself. Thanks to this, along with its ability to survive in polluted or low oxygen water, this species has managed to colonize nearly the entire planet. Pay very close attention to what's happening right now, because what this snail is doing is basically impossible. It's crawling upside down on the underside of the water's surface as if it were a solid ceiling. And it's not magic. Its foot secretes a trail of mucus that takes advantage of the water's surface tension, creating tiny ripples that let it grip onto something that, in reality, isn't solid at all. And it seems to get along quite well with these tiny creatures called ostracods. Crustaceans so small they barely reach the size of a sesame seed, yet they've been inhabiting this planet for nearly 500 million years, long before dinosaurs even existed. And here's something hard to believe. Many of their freshwater species don't even need to mate with a partner. They're able to clone themselves generation after generation, with no males required at all. Then, a sudden movement in this well water caught my attention, though filming it was genuinely difficult, given how fast and jittery it moved. It looked like a backswimmer, but it was actually a beetle from the family Dyticidae. And the most fascinating part is that it carries its own oxygen tank underwater, a tiny bubble of air trapped beneath its wing covers. This jar is an entire universe of life. Every corner hides a completely different creature. On the surface, I noticed some transparent worms moving erratically. But now sharpen your hearing, because while I was filming this, I started hearing something that sounded like a cicada singing, coming from inside the jar itself. I tried to track down where it came from, but it turned out to be far harder than expected, mistaking it for other insects because even when they went still, the sound just kept going. And what I discovered afterward left me stunned. That song most likely comes from a tiny aquatic insect, capable of producing, by rubbing parts of its own body together, the loudest sound in the entire animal kingdom relative to its size. Some tiny fish had ended up trapped inside the jar, unintentionally swept in, along with the water and substrate I'd collected, so I decided to feed them a bit of fish food, just to make sure they'd survive in there. And by the way they lunged at the food, devouring it almost instantly, it became crystal clear just how hungry they were, and how much of a real feast they'd had the moment those first crumbs hit the water. But they weren't the only ones enjoying that banquet. The beetles joined in on the feast too. And here's a fact almost nobody knows. When they feel threatened, they're able to release defensive steroid compounds through their own bodies, a type of chemical compound that hasn't been found in any other animal on the entire planet. And interestingly, despite all living together inside this very same jar, sharing the same space and the same food day after day, these beetles aren't sociable with each other at all. The moment food starts running low, they won't hesitate for a second to turn on one another, even members of their own species. Then something appeared that chilled me to the bone, a creature that causes total revulsion just by hearing its name, leeches. They were very small and blended in incredibly well among the transparent worms. This annelid has a single goal, to absorb blood, and with little access to food inside that jar, they kept searching non-stop for some prey to feed on. And here's something that surprises almost everyone. Contrary to what most people think, they don't rely exclusively on mammal blood. Many species also feed on fish, amphibians, and even birds. And the most unsettling part of all is that their saliva contains a powerful natural anesthetic, capable of completely blocking the pain of the bite, which explains why, in nature, most people don't even realize a leech has attached to their skin until minutes later. The days kept passing inside that jar, and along with them, new inhabitants kept showing up, like these mosquito larvae, which wasted no time multiplying at a surprising rate, or this other kind of beetle, which appeared floating practically out of nowhere, almost immediately serving as shelter for some of the worms that already lived in there. After spending all this time observing every corner of that tiny ecosystem, I decided that every single one of these creatures, without exception, would be far better off living in freedom, especially the little fish, who deserved a space much bigger than a simple glass jar. So I made the decision, without giving it a second thought, to head to a suitable spot and empty it out completely, setting each one of them free in their new home.